Denise Myers.
Paul Myers.
And the Road Warrior Investors are doing something a little bit different. We're in downtown Boise, Idaho, and we are checking out some paranormal, but we have an amazing historian with us.
Yep.
And that's Mark.
Hi, my name's Mark Iverson. I run Ida History, and I live in Boise, and I like to learn everything I can about Boise history.
I love
There's
it.
a lot of history to learn, isn't there?
There
a lot of things
is.
happened here, isn't it? It's not a, you know.
It's
a
an
wild
endless
town.
process.
For sure. So we're going to do, first off, thank you for doing a very private tour with us and just kind of sharing some of your historical knowledge of the areas. And I think we're going to tour 2 or 3, maybe 4 different properties here in the next hour or so and get some good history. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Let's go. All right. Where are we going first, Mark?
So we're going to go to 110 Main Street, and it's an old mansion, well, relatively, that was built in 1904, and it's just down the street, and
Old
it's the
Boise.
old Boise, right? And it's the location of a well-known haunting inside this mansion, and it involves a young girl, an accident, and decades and decades of the supernatural.
All right. Well, let's go check it out. Where are we going? That way?
Yes.
All right. So that's 140. We're going to 110.
Yes.
You don't know them.
I know they're beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, this was what they considered the entrance to Warm Springs Boulevard. They used to call it Old Hot Springs Road, and it's where the travelers on the Oregon Trail would come down there and dip in the hot springs.
Is there still a hot spring there somewhere?
Yeah, they have geothermal waters that are all being, directed towards the homes now that are in that area.
Okay.
So here is 110 Main, and it looks, I don't know, I'm no architectural historian, but it looks almost southern, but made of this stone, and it all comes from Table Rock, to the east of here, down Warm Springs, and so it's all sandstone structures, and all these old houses have foundations that are sandstone, and the majority of it comes from Table Rock. And so, these mansions popped up. That one's 1897, and then this one is 1904. So it's they span the decades.
Yeah.
And so 110 Main was the home of a guy named Timothy Regan, and he was a miner that comes out in 1863, and he goes to well-known Silver City, Idaho, in the Owyhee Mountains.
Yep.
And so when he comes back, he hits it rich, man. He gets all sorts of veins down in the earth of gold, silver. And so he moves to Boise in the 1880s, builds a different mansion, but finally comes back this way and builds this behemoth, right? Because he wants to be where all the well-known wealthy people are moving, at the mouth to Warm Springs. Anyway, Timothy Regan builds this house, and he lives there for a little while, but he dies of the Spanish flu. He has his wake inside the house. In 1919, he passes away, and his son passes away while he's killed on the Western Front. And that's back in 1918. And so he has his wake in this house in 1920. So maybe there's some stuff from before that, was the origin of a haunting. But what was really known for is the spirit of a young woman, 14 years old, and her name was Maribel Gailey. And she doesn't look 14 in this shot, but I think it's the quality of the photo.
Grainy photo.
Right.
What year was that? 1942.
42.
Okay, still.
And so the Gailey family from Council, Idaho, had come to own this property, and they wanted to be, they were well-to-do, millions of dollars in just orchard business. And so he moves from Council to Boise, Idaho in 1938. And he buys this mansion. And so life's pretty good. He has twin daughters, Dorothy and Maribel, and some other children. And so the papers, the Idaho Statesman particularly, love to report on this family, especially the 2 twin daughters, right? Identical. And so in 1942, Maribel is hanging out with a young man. She's in, as they said in the paper, courting age. And so this is May 5th, 1942, and she's with her friend down in this office here, her father's office, and they're playing with a .22 pistol. They take out the clip, but they forget to check the chamber of the gun. and he's playing with the gun, and it goes off and it hits Mary Bell in the forehead. And it's a tragedy. She dies, and you really don't get any stories after that until 1968. And in 1968, the Gailey family leased this out to a frat at Boise State.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so
Kappa
really?
Sig, I think. Kappa Sig.
Yeah.
And so I've had a couple of these guys on my tour, but basically,
Not to notice too differently, but notice how they actually raised the railing up to more. This is not really.
oh, that's a
Right?
good. I've never noticed
They raised
that.
that up to the proper height. Sorry.
I've never
Building
noticed that. Yeah,
That's it.
that's
just it
true.
else.
And so basically, until 1976, this is a frat house. And I had a couple of guys on the tour just a couple months ago, and they were telling me some stories. There are reports of apparitions, or probably just one apparition that loves the hallway and the stairs. And so basically they were saying that they call her Belle. They knew the story. And on the back of the building, there is a balcony. And they said they were out there and they were drinking because they're in a frat. But they said they basically saw something come out of the closet in the room and then float out into the hall area.
Wow.
They also said that they would have get-togethers in the attic, and basically they would see strange things in shadows. And so you have all your classic haunting activity, you know, drapes, you know, fluttering, cold spots, but you know, look at this house.
Yeah.
You know, drawers and cabinets opening on their own, the faucet being turned on and off, and particularly a playful spirit that likes to move things from one place to the other and then move them back. And so those are some of the reports. But the frat moves out in 1976, and a guy named Bob, I'll just call him Bob, he moves in, and he owns the place for over 40 years, and he moves out in 2013. But he said, and we saw him last night on one of my tours, he basically said that he would see things through his kids. His kids would do weird stuff, and he would witness it.
Oh.
And they would talk, all three of them would talk independently, sometimes together, to something that wasn't there. And they were above the age of an imaginary friend, he would say. And so he individually asked each kid, "What's up there? What are you talking to? This is strange." And they all said, "We're talking to the little girl that lives near the attic, or in the attic." And so that was something that the kids regularly did in their youth. And then as they got older in the house and moved out, they would continue to come and say, you know, "Where's Belle? How's Belle?" And she's a nice spirit. But when they moved out, you know, some investor, capitalist, venture capitalists, that's the word, they move in and they say they see some of the same things. They haven't reported a spirit, but they have said that one of the things that happens is people will be trapped up in the attic when a couple of times workmen have been up there and their phone stopped working. And so they pull down, you know, those old stairs that you hook into the floor. And that's something that's also been continuously reported, is people get stuck up there because those stairs will come up.
Go up.
You know, I mean, physics says that that's not gonna, you know, got a chain or a sturdy
Yeah,
rope,
gotta hook
strap
it
it
up.
in there. But the old adage is that you can see her looking at you from the attic and upper windows of the home. I've
Yeah.
never seen anything, but there's a first time for everything.
Wow.
Fun.
What a neat old building, though.
Yeah, it's a beautiful building.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's one of a kind.
Definitely commercial zone now. I guess that's a residence, isn't it? That's a
It's apartments.
apartment.
And that used actually, so Dorothy, the twin of Mary Bell, bought this later and added those windows that are kind of closed in balconies or patios, whatever they are. So it doesn't look like it used to, but that was built in 1897 for $10,000. And I looked at that, before I researched all this, I said, that's
Wow.
got to be the haunted house
A lot
right
of
there.
money there, yeah.
Yeah, but it did have a bowling alley in the basement in 1909 to 1911 for,
Which one? This one?
yeah.
No kidding.
There was a ballroom kind of downstairs for the, it was called the Yof Mansion because they're a German family. And Albert Yof dies of consumption, and his widow leases the house out to the governor, James Brady, from 1909 to 1911. And he doesn't have a wife. He doesn't feel he needs a ballroom down there for social events or anything, so he rips out the wood, repurposes it, and creates a bowling alley of a couple lanes in the basement. Now it's not a bowling alley, it's just storage,
Yeah.
you know.
That's
But
funny.
yeah, that used to be down
That's
there.
awesome.
Well, we need to be able to go tour it, but I get it's a business, so we'll leave them alone.
Yeah, they've let us in there before a couple months ago, or a couple years ago, excuse me. And, you know, it's all those, the beautiful wood, the mahogany, and the oak. And then there's Timothy Regan built a special fireplace, green tile, but mixed in this tile is some of the first gold dust he ever found up in the Hawaiis. And then there are frescoes on the wall that they've uncovered. And it's absolutely beautiful inside, but I haven't been in a couple years. So
Now, I know you probably know the owners, and we could get a tour in there and not have to ask.
I think maybe
I'll have to ask them in the future.
could.
In the future,
Yeah,
see if we
not
can
today.
go in.
this is the Idaho Hotel.
Idaho.
And it's basically a made-up word. There was another Idaho Hotel in
Like a Hojo?
Soda Springs or some springs in southeast Idaho. So I forget the name of the town, but it's another. It starts with or ends with Springs. But basically, this was built in 1900 and it opens January. Well, first 1903 they have the party for the investors and the well-to-do of town, and then in January 3rd they let the public in at large to tour this place, and it's designed to look like a French ski chalet chateau, the French Canadian French style.
Yes.
What ends up, or 1893, excuse me, the at Front and 10th Street, that's where the Oregon Short Line Railroad depot went in, because we got access to the Oregon Short Line, which then connected people to major hubs, right? But that's why this goes in, because this is basically the new business district, right? They're expanding outward toward the outskirts of town. And so they put this in there, and it's a big, it's one of the fanciest hotels in the West. And so they have, a beautiful lobby, or they did. Let's recorrect that. Now it's kind of, its glory days are past, but here is a picture from Library of Congress of what it used to look like, right? And so running south to north, basically where Guru Donuts is here, and then an Indian food restaurant on the other side, it was all open, and they had a long bar, and they had gambling card rooms in the basement, and And so what they would do is they would be served drinks by a dumbwaiter. But then he went to college. Hey.
Nice. Got me.
No. And so they lowered the drinks down with this dumbwaiter, and they would play cards in the basement. And so there was also like a kind of secret, I haven't found where it was, but women's parlor where they would hang out, and there was like this almost hidden staircase. So I'm trying to find this on a map, and I'm having a hard time, or some sort of blueprint. But the stories from this hotel are crazy, and I mean, it's supposed to be really haunted. You got a lot of historic events here. Governor Stewenberg, Frank Stewenberg, was assassinated in Caldwell, right? Harry Orchard, Knight of Labor, a warrior for the labor movement, right? He put a can packed with explosives in the mailbox, connected to a string to the gate, and when the ex-governor opens the gate, he's killed. But he was originally going to do it on the second floor here in a suite, right, for very important guests. And so, but he didn't want to kill chambermaids, so he unhooked the bomb and decided against it. The other thing that would happen here is that there was I forget the guy's name, but he was from Weezer, and he was a major league baseball pitcher, or eventually would, and he would practice down the hallways pitching, right? The main spooky story happened on the 4th floor, and it was a pretty violent thing that happened all the way back long ago in 1975. And so
Now, what is this still a hotel now, or is it what?
no, it's apartments. Yeah, it was stopped being a hotel. You could rent apartments here, but it was also still a hotel up until 1998.
Nice. Is he doubling out? All right, so we're on the 4th floor of the Eidenha.
Yeah, and so there are a couple of tales related to the Eidenha Hotel on the 4th floor, and this is supposed to be the most haunted floor, right? Its grandeur is done, right? I mean, it's basically whitewashed and linoleum. But back in the day, this was a pretty nice place to, hang out. But in the 1970s, it had become a little bit run down. One tale dates back to 1921 when a guy named Alexander Palmer Jacobs, the son of a wealthy mercantilist, Cyrus Jacobs, who passed away, and gives him all his money. He lives out in Cuna, but he asks his wife if she'd like to commit to a suicide pact in 1918, and she says, no thanks, right, obviously. But he starts seeing a psychiatrist downtown, and so he'll take these trips from Cuna downtown, right? Money doesn't buy happiness, but he has the money for whatever a therapist is in 1921, and his name was Dr. Tallman, and that's his real name. But in May 18th, 1921, he checks into this hotel. His family thinks he's at another hotel, but what he ends up doing is one of the turreted rooms in front of, I believe, the southeast side. He stays there, and he jumps out the window and lands on his head. And so two women on their way to their job as a waitress at a diner see him do this, and so he's supposed to be one of the spirits that haunt this area. But the main story, sometimes people confuse this guy with a bellman, but it literally happened right where you're standing. And so it is kind of a creepy story, one of the most kind of violent stories. So do, send the kiddies away. But it involves a murder-suicide that happened on April 29th, 1975. This was room 410, and I know because there's pictures right across from the elevator. There are reports talking about how it was right across from the elevator on the 4th floor. And it was the room of a guy named Joseph Grannon, and he was 85 years old in April of 1975. And down in the bar that you can still go down to, underneath in the basement of the hotel, old hotel, was a guy named John Nelson. And, it's about 8 o'clock at night on the 29th, and he's sitting down there and he's doing things like, swearing at customers who's sitting next to him, scratching himself, hitting himself. And so after about, 20 minutes of this, the bartender asks him to leave. So he leaves. Now Meanwhile, Grannon's sitting here watching TV, and he's just minding his own. Now, people would later witness what happened, but only hear it. And so what happened was, basically, the elevator opens, and somewhere John Nelson, had gotten himself a 12-gauge shotgun. And so he's hitting the walls and screaming and doing all these things. Other people didn't come out, but Grannon's right here watching TV, probably annoyed. So he opens the door and says, what's going on here? And he's shot.
Right here.
Right here. And that's him right in front of this door here.
Here.
Yeah. And so then what happens is basically that Grannon is now dead. And so what happens to Nelson is he goes to, as the reports say, the north end of the hallway right before it turns east, and he shoots himself. And so this becomes the root of various legends, like a bellhop. People have called this guy a bellhop. There are many people that died, that loved this place, some of which were bellhops. And so maybe this is the root to that haunting. But ever since then, there's supposed to be a dark entity or spirit that scratches women and bruises women and makes noise in the early morning hours and things like that. And on a tour, I have had strange things happen on here. One of the reports is that lights start to pulse and flicker really fast, and that has happened. Some of my customers got a video of it, and we actually have a photo of down in the lobby a weird black blob that is above the stairs down there, and I have a picture of it I can show you on my phone. But that was captured by a few women on a private tour I was doing, and believe me, we were looking up there at the time, nothing was there. So I don't know much about phone photography, but who knows?
One thing I noticed about this floor, and maybe it's consistent with the others, is there's no indication that we're on the 4th floor until you go to a room like over here, where I'm guessing it says 403. So what have they done with these two rooms? Have they turned them into utility, or they're not renting them?
Well, so I'm not sure. What I do know is that 2 rooms now, hotel rooms, constitute 1 apartment, right?
And they're
so they could have combined them.
to that side to that side.
But I'm not.
But there's nothing on this door either.
Right.
So
Who that is linked to the corner, the 2 corners.
Okay.
Where that's, these 2 are linked to each other, I believe. So this one is linked to that one.
When they put trim up to hide the door, it could have been a service room here. One of these could have been.
Let's find out. Just kidding.
Look at the keyhole.
My hope is that one day that somebody will come along and refurbish this and make it look, how it sort of did in its glory days. It's just dying to be revamped and, revitalized.
They did add sprinklers and fire systems.
You have to to make it an apartment complex.
Yeah.
This had one of the earliest, if not the earliest, elevator in
So it is
Boise.
original to a point.
Yeah.
It's small.
Right.
Yeah, it's very well used.
Yeah.
The Avery Hotel down there has one of the oldest ones too, and I believe they refurbished it, but they refurbished most of that hotel. But yeah, this was one of the earliest ones too, and this whole building is rife with tales. All the way up to the 6th floor, it's supposed to be haunted. Things have happened in the Indian food restaurant, people I've talked to. Things have happened that tell me on the 6th floor, like, cupboards will open and just stay open. Everybody I've talked to here has had some weird thing happen, and they'll tell you, the walls bleed, and, like, there's all sorts of, like, creepy. But most of it is just, most people come out and say, the Tupperware flew across. One sous chef at the Indian food restaurant said that basically he was working in this like very thin hallway-esque place where they, prepare food, and he said a Tupperware container that you would think would just fall if it came off the cut of the wall went and kind of flew across. Cabinets open, taps turning on, doors opening on their own, those kind of things. So I don't know.
Interesting.
It's all a mystery. Good stuff. So if people wanted to try and do a tour with you, what is that tour information?
So you go to idahistory.com, and we have, we go to idahistory.com, and you just go scroll down to the bottom, and you can see right now we have 3 offerings. You know, true crime tours that I do in my 1978 motorhome. You know, which is awesome. Shag carpet, everything, orange. And then this walking tour, you know, that you can go and book. I think I'm going to start back up in November because people have requested it. But, you know, we'll see what happens. But we have all sorts of new stuff coming. So just idahistory.com.
idahistory.com.
Yeah.
We'll go right online and look it up.
Oh, and we have Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok too.
Yay. So that was a fun afternoon, Mark. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
for a great
thank you.
afternoon.
That was fun.
Incredible history being learned.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited to come back and do it again sometime
Yes,
with a bigger
do it
tour.
again.
I think that'll be awesome.
Yeah. You know, I don't know what the future is for my tours. I know like the walking tours kind of die down in the winter,
Yeah.
but you know, the van tours, you know, happen all year round because
I
people
love
just
it.
seem to want to. And
Yeah.
Christmas get an uptick, which is strange.
So it's more than just paranormal. You do true crime.
I do
and-
true crime, you know, and people are like, oh, you know, true crime, why do you do that stuff? And I don't do just true crime sites for the grizzly. I sometimes people are disappointed because, you know, I don't show horrendous photos. That's not what it's about. It's about the historical context you can draw out of it and what was happening in Boise because of these things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you see a lot of good and bad actually when it involves true crime, whether
Sure.
it's a police detective that stays on a you know, on a case even after he is no longer you know, a detective, or, you know, family members that do all they can to you know, bring the killer of their loved one to justice. I mean, yeah, it's just you see the community rally around people.
Yeah.
So it's not all bad, you know, that's
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, if you want to learn more about the history of Boise or go on one of Mark's tours, be sure to go out to his website and check that out.
Absolutely.
And in the
With that,
meantime, we'll see you out in the field. Bye.
Yeah.